So, good afternoon, and thank you for coming. This is under the auspices of the local community health board, which is called Spar, and the plan is to have something like this once a month. The initial idea was to have a TED talk taken from YouTube, but then they thought, well, why have a professional, polished speaker when they can have me? So we're going to talk about depression. With this COVID and this isolation, it's on the rise, and it's also on the rise at Christmas time for some reason. So it's sort of opposite for the time. What does Dr. Howe know about depression? He has a good job and enough money and a nice house. Well, Dr. Howe has been depressed for about 30 years. When I was in Newfoundland, I used to go up the side of the hill behind our house and look out over the lovely view over the river, and I think I would really like just to have a heart attack right now, and I would die looking at this. And then later on, this progressed to, how would I do it? How would I commit suicide? How would I kill myself? But the trouble is that I couldn't really do it because it would upset some people, and my wife would never get over it. And I know two people whose children committed suicide, not in Parsborough, but elsewhere, and it certainly didn't do them any good. So I was kind of trapped. Until some 30 years later, I did see my friend, the local family doctor, and we talked about it, and she thought I had depression and gave me some advice and started on pills. And the next day, I felt an enormous sense of elation. I'm not sure I've ever been happier in my life. It was better than an orgasm because it lasted all day. And it was far too early for any pills to take effect. So I think it was that I had told her. So why hadn't I told anybody about this before? Well, it's kind of awkward for a doctor to go and see another doctor, especially in a small place where you tend to know each other. But that's not really a very good excuse because the Doctors Association have professional people to deal with just this kind of thing. But I grew up in England after the war. I was born in 1941. And in England during the war and after, the prevailing ethos was always keep calm and carry on, grin and bear it. And you can see that was necessary during the war. We lived in London during the bombing, and I don't remember my parents ever saying anything that they did during the war or anything about how they felt. They kept calm and carried on. At the beginning of the war, the government was afraid that there would be mass panic in London, and they built 6 large psychiatric hospitals on the outskirts, and they never used one of them. Everybody kept their stiff upper lip. There was a war to win, and they did their bit. But that's how I grew up. And I also didn't want to go and see somebody and be told, oh, you're just unhappy. Everybody's unhappy. Grin and bear it. So why am I telling you this? People who talk about their illnesses are boring, as you all know. So I've finished doing that. I would like people to remember that other people can be like this. So my plea is that you will be nice to people. You never know what is going on in the mind of anybody else. I'm sure none of you knew that I've been thinking about suicide ever since I came to Parliament, which was 1996, Nancy. No one had the slightest inkling, I'm quite sure. And if the person you're speaking to is not depressed, they could easily be unhappy. And this isn't just me saying that because I'm in a depressed mood. 50% of marriages end up in divorce. And divorce is difficult and painful and expensive, and it upsets your children. So you know that a lot of marriages are not particularly happy. I don't know if anybody watches the CTV news. Sometimes they announce people who've had 50 years wedding anniversaries, and they say sometimes so-and-so celebrating 50 years of married bliss, and the fairy stories end, they got married and live happily ever after. And the technical term for this kind of misrepresentation is bullshit. This will be of no help to you, but married women are less happy than single women, but married men are happier than married men. So I don't quite know what you can...
Say that again, please? Yeah. I just didn't catch that.
Married men are happier than single men, but married women are less happy than married women. No, married women are less happy than single women.
Okay, I got it now.
So, be nice to people. Thoreau said the mass of men live lives of quiet desperation. And I think he's right. So that's the first takeaway. And the second takeaway is that there are lots of things that you could do yourself to try and improve your mood. And they used to say that what you do and what you feel and what happens to you has psychological effects. You know, if you're abused as a child, it carries over forever. And that is true, but there are also science that shows that the neuron connections in your brain change all the time, and you can change them yourself to a better way by doing some of these things. So, these are my slides. You needn't make notes. Or I should say, all this is going to be on the whole website, and the final slide will be on the whole website as well. Now, there we go. Brilliant. So the first thing you should do is not do what I did, say nothing for 30 years, but go and seek help. And in the same bracket is to talk. Now, if you want to talk to somebody, be careful who you talk to. Whatever you do, don't talk to your spouse. It will upset them, and they will start to say things like, "Is it my fault?" So that won't help, even if it is. And if you have somebody that you can open up to and you're close to, that's fine. Your better bet is to see either a family physician or a nurse practitioner, I suppose, or a psychologist. And like I say, I felt so good after I opened up, so that is definitely worth doing. Most people, if you try and talk to them, will cut you off. If you see TV programs or movies, one person talks, then there's a gap, and then the other person talks. In real life, one person talks, and within 10 seconds, the other person interrupts. And that is not what you want if you're trying to say something as important as this. When people say, "How are you?" as they pass you in the street, they don't want to know.
No, they don't. No.
Okay, moving on. These are all going to be very quick, and if you want something in more detail, you can let somebody know, and I can come back and go into these in more detail. Alcohol. if you're feeling bad, there's a great temptation to drink because it will numb how you feel. And there is a huge problem with that, which is that, well, there's two problems. The first is that if you drink alcohol because you enjoy the taste, that's fine. But if you drink it to relieve a symptom, and the symptom comes back and you drink some more, and there is a risk that you will become addicted. And drinking too much alcohol is bad for all sorts of things, not just your liver, but some cancers and your heart, and that kind of thing. So if you find yourself drinking alcohol to feel better, then you need help. Exercise has been shown to improve your mood, and all these things can be done by anybody, whether you're depressed or not, and it's a good thing to get in the habit of. But exercise is good for everything, your physical health and indeed your mental health. And I don't quite know why, but it may be because while you're doing it, you're thinking about that, and so you're not thinking about anything else. But all these things are improving the nerve connections in your brain. Next thing, go outdoors. It seems that people who make a point of going outdoors are happier. It may be that we're evolved from people who lived outdoors and had to go hunting or foraging. But the outdoors does have a calming effect on people. This is all very quick, as I say, just to introduce you to the ideas. Take time for yourself. If your life is busy and you are fed up with your circumstances, you need to take a time to think and just be you. I don't know a lot about meditation, but I have recently started it. Mindful meditation, where you sit quietly and you think about your breathing and physical sensations of your feet on the floor and your bottom on the chair and that kind of thing. So that is, I think, a good way to take time for yourself. And that is important. Moving on. Yes, I don't do this, but I think I probably should. Every day, think of something that you're grateful for. And I try and do that. I don't write it down, but it doesn't do any harm to do that, and then you can look back at it. And it's a way of not thinking about the bad things in your life, and it's sort of part of making time for yourself. A gratitude diary. Now this goes back to the Stoics. If you do something and you succeed at it, tell yourself you've done a good job. And it doesn't have to be anything terribly elaborate. If you've opened a jar that your wife couldn't get open, or you've untangled a knot in a ball of string, or anything at all. And I do this all the time. If a nut is stuck and I finally undo it, I say, "Well done, David." And it sounds silly, but for a second you feel good about that. We all make mistakes, and it's very easy to dwell on your mistakes, especially if you're feeling depressed. And I spent a lot of time worrying about whether I had brought my daughter up properly. But she isn't in jail, so I guess it wasn't too bad. But if you make a mistake, or if you have made mistakes in your life, even if they are really quite serious mistakes, tell yourself, well, you did that, Time is going on. Perhaps there's a reason for it. Perhaps you did what your parents did. So don't concentrate on your mistakes and try and, or don't be got down by your mistakes. Try and forgive yourself. We're nearly at the end. Yes. It is good for your mental health to look after something or somebody. A person, or a dog, or a cat, or even a plant or a garden. Tending to anything and seeing it blossom or prosper, or at least in the person feel better, is actually good for you. And the last one, yes. This is actually one of the most important, but I put it last because when you go to doctor school, they tell you that if you talk to a patient, they'll forget most of what you say, but they'll probably remember the last thing you say. So, social isolation. I know I got up there. Yes, social isolation is bad for you. It was before the pandemic, and it's actually bad for your physical health as well as your mental health. People who are isolated and lonely are more likely to go to the emergency department, they're more likely to take to alcohol, they are more likely to have heart attacks, and there are even some cancers that they are more likely to get. So it's a little bit more difficult to socialize in this environment, but there are things you can do. You can pick up the phone and call somebody. And if you do, you may be surprised. Even if you haven't spoken to them for a bit, after the initial "how are you, I'm fine" nonsense, you may find that they talk and talk and talk because they are lonely and they have something to say, and you're the first person who's given them the time to say it. And if that happens, don't interrupt them. You can go away and have a cup of coffee, but don't interrupt them. Now, there is also technology. You can talk and see the other person, as you all know, video conferencing or video chat or whatever. And if anybody has any difficulty with doing this, they can ring me up, and my number is in the book, and I will be happy to come and show them how to do it. Or the YMCA in Amherst is going to start a program after Christmas of this sort of tech instruction, and they will have a certain number of iPads. How many they have, it depends on how much money that they get, I suppose, but they have a certain number of iPads that they will give you. So if you know somebody who's having trouble, I'm sure all you people are up with all this stuff, but if you know somebody, perhaps an elderly person who isn't, let them know of this opportunity. Somebody came to our house, and it turned out in conversation, he said, I wish I could FaceTime my nephews. So I showed him how to FaceTime, and we did it there and then, and so that was good. If you can do anything in a group, which is difficult now, but when the COVID is over, that is very good for you, especially if you can accomplish something as a group. Those of you who have heard me sing will be surprised to know that I am allowed to sing in the choir. What Nancy says about my musical ability isn't strictly true, but the choir is one way that you can do things socially. This will be on the website. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for coming.